It's a place that tells the story of one of this nation's greatest cities. It's also a place where visitors can view an impressive collection highlighting American history, including an original copy of the Declaration of Independence. Hi, I'm Jim Wilhelm. This building houses the Chicago Historical Society, the oldest cultural institution in the city. Today, the Society oversees one of the top historical museums in the country, with a growing collection of more than 20 million items. Of course, many of the displays here relate to Chicago's history, but the Society is also noted for its collection of items related to American history. And that's an area that got a huge boost in 1920 when the museum purchased a collection of Charles Gunther. He was a local confectioner who claimed to have introduced caramels to the country, and he was continuously seeking Civil War and historical artifacts from around the world. He even bought the Civil War's infamous Libby Prison in Richmond and had it moved to Chicago to house his expanding collection. Some of what he collected was humorous. For example, he claimed that this was the skin of the serpent that had tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden, along with testimonies of authenticity. But vast portions of what he collected were historic treasures. This walnut spindle bed came from the back room of the Peterson House in Washington, D.C. It was on this bed on April 15, 1865, that Lincoln was laid after being shot in the head, and where he later died. The museum has the bloody sheet from the bed, the blood-stained pillowcase, the shirt Lincoln was wearing. It even has samples of hair taken from the area of the bullet wound. In addition, the bureau, the rocking chair, and even the lithograph on the wall are from that room. On display from Lincoln's presidency is this pocket watch engraved with his initials, given to him by the owner of a Springfield newspaper, and this life mast cast from the original mold, which was made 2 months before his death. In addition to the Abraham Lincoln objects, Charles Gunther was an avid collector of Civil War items. He had battle flags, weaponry, and even items that related to the Libby Prison, which was the building in which he housed his collection. These items were carved out of beef bones by Colonel William Powell. He made a set of napkin rings for his children and was able to document his life in this small diary. And here's the marble tabletop where on April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia to General Ulysses S. Grant. Also on display is this saddle and bridle reportedly used by General Grant during the war. And here's a chair used by General Hooker during the Atlanta campaign. The left arm has been damaged by a bullet and repaired in the field with a piece of iron. The Chicago Historical Society Museum has artifacts dating back to the birth of our nation, as well as those that relate to Chicago's history. This display recounts the early European years, at which time this area was just beginning to emerge as an important trading center. In the beginning, it was merely a portage into the interior of the New World. Jesuit priests came to open missions to convert the local tribes. So too came the traders, bringing metal items such as these to exchange for furs. But over 100 years after the French arrived, a new country came to claim the land. In 1803, the Secretary of War, Henry Dearborn, ordered the construction of a fort to establish the United States presence in the area. It only lasted 9 years until the War of 1812, when some local tribes joined with British forces to try to reclaim their land. On August 14th of that year, while the troops and settlers were being evacuated, they were ambushed. 50 men, women, and children were killed in what became known as the Fort Dearborn Massacre. The fort was burned. This trunk belonged to the wife of the fort's commander. It's made of pine board covered with deer hide. After the attack, both she and her husband became British prisoners. Later, Chief Blackbird, who led the raid, was awarded this medal by the British commander. The fort was rebuilt in 1816 and used till 1837. Its last remaining structures were destroyed by the Great Fire. On display are some of the original logs used in the second fort. Plus, there's a mystery that is shared by the two forts. This carved stone is mentioned in several references to the fort. It was located just beyond the stockade in the first fort, and it was later moved to the parade ground in the second fort. But controversy still surrounds its origin. It's said the carving was done by a soldier who used the Potawatomi chief Wabansi as his model. Others claim the stone was used as an altar for ancient peoples or even used as a mooring stone by Vikings. In addition to these artifacts, the museum has in its archives the journal accounts of Jacques Marquette and of Lieutenant Swearingen, who came here to build the first fort, Fort Dearborn. In a moment, two other events that left their marks on this city. But first, as we've already said, this museum contains a vast collection, of which only a small portion is on display. It's a collection that covers a wide range of topics.
We have a wonderful range of materials here at the Historical Society. When we started out collecting in the 1850s, we, of course, were interested in collecting from notable pioneers of the city's early history, also early materials pertaining to the American Republic. We have materials of Charles Guteau, who was the assassin of President James Garfield in 1881. The death mask, of course, results from the fact that Guteau was hung about 9 months after President Garfield died. And there are documents in Guteau's hand which indicate that he was expecting financial aid from the outside. He'd write to people saying, "I could certainly use the check right now, make it out to me, care of U.S. Jail, Washington, D.C., and you can be sure it'll be put to my defense," and whatnot. Well, he received actually very little financial support. That's the bonnet that Mrs. Lincoln wore at Ford's Theater on the night of the assassination. So, we also have the cape that she wore, which has blood on it. Our costume collection at the Historical Society is one of the largest in the country and one of the best. Not only are there high-end fashions available to document Chicago history, but also workmen's jumpsuits and stewardesses' outfits and things which represent the working world as well as the recreational or the social world. Chicago, leaping to such a large status as a Midwest manufacturing center, produced practically everything by the 1880s, 1890s. Things of not only just the meats and the lumber and all the sort of raw goods of American produce, but also finer materials. We had a lot of craftsmen here, and the shoe industry and the furniture industry and whatnot produced a lot of very fine artifacts. We have items within our collection that represent important events within the history of the city. Of course, the Leopold glasses are fantastic for those who know the crime and know the details of the crime. To realize that those glasses have ended up here is quite a thrill. Many people know about the infamous crime of Leopold and Loeb in 1924 when they engaged in a thrill killing on the south side involving a neighborhood boy. And when they were disposing of the body around Wolf Lake, apparently Nathan Leopold leaned over and these glasses came out of his coat and remained at the site. The police discovered the glasses and were able to trace them back to Nathan Leopold because the glasses had a very unique hinge on one side, which had only recently been released for use. Nathan Leopold willed these glasses to the Historical Society. The capsizing of the Eastland in 1915 with the loss of life of over 800 people is one of the sadder, well-known events in Chicago history. This certificate we have dates from the 1913 season and indicates that the Eastland was authorized to carry 2,000 passengers. But on the morning of the disaster in July of 1915, they had in excess of 2,000 who had come on board. And of course, the top-heavy conditions and the poor ballast condition resulted in an overturning of the ship. All right. This is a solid steel meat cleaver from the Chicago Stockyards era. This is, I won't venture a guess as to its weight, but this is significant. If you can get this traveling with a certain amount of force, it's going to come down with a lot of attack pressure. It's very heavy, and that will cut through joint material easily. But as we moved into the 20th century, we continued collecting those high-end materials, but we also became more determined to collect more broadly so that we would have things that average people could come in and say, I used to play with a set of those when I was a child, or I used to see that facility on the south side when I was growing up. We have a Vegematic because the Vegematic and a number of related items were invented by a Chicagoan by the name of Ron Popeil, and these are a large part of people's experience in the mid-20th century. In addition to the materials we've been looking at here, we also have a very extensive photographic collection, one of the greatest within the United States in terms of documenting the urban experience. Our collections are quite open to the public. When we receive offers of donations to the Historical Society, we try to coax the donors into turning over as open access as possible to these materials.
Mention Chicago and most people think of the Great Fire, so it's only appropriate that we would have on display the city's first fire engine from 1832. But this fire engine did not participate in the Great Fire 39 years later. It had been replaced by more modern equipment. The Great Fire happened on October 8, 1871. And it only destroyed 3.2 miles of Chicago's 35 square miles. Unfortunately, the area that burned contained the entire central business district. Here are some everyday items fused together by the heat, which were found in the debris. The fire took 300 lives while causing an estimated $192 million in property damage, but the people and the city quickly sprang back. Days after the fire, businesses began to reappear along the rubble. One of the first buildings to go up belonged to William Kerfoot, who hung this sign on his new store. It reads, "All gone but wife, children, and energy." This is the only Norman Rockwell painting on public display in Chicago. And of course, it depicts Mrs. O'Leary and her cow. And while the fire did start on or near her barn, the actual cause of the fire was never officially determined. Ironically, her home was spared. Another event that left its mark on Chicago history, but in a positive manner, was the Columbian Exposition of 1893. It consisted of over 65,000 exhibits housed in more than 200 buildings. The most striking and popular ride was the world's first Ferris wheel. It was a massive structure storing 250 feet with 36 cars, each capable of holding 60 people. For a 20-minute ride, which was 2 revolutions, the cost was a whopping 50 cents. Another popular attraction was the replica of a Cairo street, which introduced exotic dancing into America. Interesting because the 1933 World's Fair, also held in Chicago, featured the scandalous dancing of Sally Rand and her fans. In fact, the museum has those famous fans along with her personal collection. In a case holding memorabilia from both fairs is this small statue titled "I Will." It's the official symbol of Chicago, and like the city, the hat depicts the phoenix rising from the fire. Welcome back to the Chicago Historical Society Museum, which has a collection of more than 20 million items, and it's still growing. And what's also still growing is the scope of what the researchers are collecting. In some cases, the emphasis has shifted from just documenting events to rediscovering how people lived, reacted, and felt. For example, this area features various voices from surrounding neighborhoods touching on the issue they deemed important. Throughout the year, the museum offers special tours with historic themes, one of the most popular being the October tour of historic cemeteries. Also during the year, costumed actors are in the museum portraying figures from our nation's past. What we've shown you today is just a small fraction of the vast number of items owned by the Chicago Historical Society. Many of the items not on display may be seen on the museum's website or by using computer terminals located in the museum. For more information about the Chicago Historical Society, the museum, tours offered, or special guest lecturers, call 312-642-4600 or visit their website at www.chicagohistory.com.